Today on The Real Story, Connecticut at the forefront of medical marijuana research with government approval for the first ever human study of the effectiveness of marijuana-based medicines for stress and pain relief and potential future use to treat PTSD. Top executives from medical marijuana producer CT Pharma are here to explain. Also, health hazards in schools across the state. A new survey by teachers saying that their classrooms are making them sick due to mold and rodents and excessive temperatures. The survey conducted by Connecticut's largest teachers union, the Connecticut Education Association, and I'll be talking with union attorney Melanie Kolek about the findings. Then a millennial's view on staying in Connecticut, staying here. My colleague Jen Bernstein is interviewing a young man who wrote an op-ed designed to counter the reasons others are giving for leaving the state. So why has he decided to stay? It's all today on The Real Story. Hello there, you're watching The Real Story. I'm Al Terzi. Jen Bernstein is on assignment, but she will be joining us here later in the show. First, this morning, a new clinical study on the effectiveness of marijuana-based medicine, and it's happening right here in Connecticut. This study's been approved by both the Federal Food and Drug Administration and the State Department of Consumer Protection, which, as you probably know, regulates medical marijuana in Connecticut. The study is being conducted jointly by Yale School of Medicine and CT Pharma, that's medical marijuana producer based in Portland, and the purpose is to determine how medical marijuana works to alleviate stress and pain and see whether it might also be effective in treating PTSD. So joining me first this morning, the top executives of CT Pharma, CEO Tom Schultz right here, and Chief Operating Officer Reno Ferraris. Nice to have you both here.
Thank you.
So put this study in perspective for us. What does this mean for us?
What it means is we're finally taking marijuana out of the realm of pure recreational habit, let's say, and into science, into real pharmaceutical research.
Now, this study, how is it going to be conducted? I understand there are a couple of phases involved.
There are two studies. There's a phase study 1 and a study 2. This is what the FDA considered a phase 1 for safety and efficacy. The study will enroll patients who will be dosed with different dosages of tablets, and based on their responses in that first study, they'll determine if they'll move on with a second study.
Yes.
With particular doses.
Oh, and then, so what are you hoping to determine here? What's the objective here, your goal?
A phase 1 study is always concerned safety. So a phase
Safety
1,
and how much to dose?
safety and dosage.
Okay.
This study will hopefully lead us in a direction to do phase 2 work, which would be a much larger group of people, and then would be testing for more specific goals. But in this first phase, safety and dosage is our basic concern.
Now, the people who participate, are they already medicinal marijuana users?
We are not using people who are completely naive to marijuana. We're using people who have used marijuana before.
Either recreationally or
medicinally, but they are people who are familiar with the product and who are volunteering to participate.
How are you doing it? You're doing it by a raffle? You put the names in a hat? We want you, or how does it work?
That's up to Yale School of Medicine. So they will select the participants from volunteers.
Can people volunteer if they have some experience with marijuana, either recreationally or medicinally?
That will be their program. So they will.
That's up to them.
They will advertise their program and then go through a selection process.
All right, so I mentioned at the beginning, thinking about the possibility that PTSD patients can benefit from some kind of regimen that you guys might come up with and find out works. Is that correct?
That's correct. That would be something that would get to in phase 2. That won't be a phase 1 result. That would be further work that would do after we're successful with phase 1.
Now, right now, you're the only entity doing this kind of research, or here in the U.S. or here in Connecticut? I mean, what's the...
Here in Connecticut, here in the U.S., this has been a difficult road for us. Here we are, though. We're very happy to be here.
How long did it take you to get to where you are?
5 years.
5 years you've been doing this?
Yes.
Wow. And that's just about since when CT Pharma started, right? Right
That's
from the
correct.
beginning.
That's
You
correct.
had this in mind.
In the beginning, the first thing we did was worked with the DCP to get research authorized in the state. In the beginning, research was not part of the program. So working with the DCP and with its strong support, we got the legislature to approve research. Once the legislature approved the research, then we started working with Yale on work like this.
Now, you recognize, of course, that there are people out there who are still a little sketchy on this idea of doing more medicinal marijuana. Maybe they didn't like it in the first place, or maybe they just really don't know if they trust it or not. How do you get by some of the public concern?
I'd say that if there's anything about marijuana or medical marijuana that we know right now is that it does either minimal harm or no harm, and we are using very, very low doses compared to what is used recreationally. So we're not here advancing the cause of, let's say, recreational use. We're here to study what this can accomplish as medication, and we're reasonably confident, based on experience to date, that we will find something.
All right, so you get through the first phase. How long might that take? Do you have an estimate?
There are 2 studies. Each runs about 8 weeks.
Studies, you call them, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
It's a phase 1 approval on an IND protocol.
What's that?
An investigational new drug protocol.
Oh,
So we had to file this application with the FDA for an investigational new drug protocol, which basically is our way of saying we have what we believe is a new form of medicine that isn't currently in use. So it's a new drug. So it's an investigational new drug application. So as part of that very first one, we have to do safety and efficacy. And it's broken into 2 studies. The first study runs roughly 8 weeks, and the second one runs a little longer than 8 weeks.
people who are involved in this testing, these 2 studies, do they get paid for doing that?
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
And that's through the Yale School of Medicine?
Yes.
Okay. And how many people do they have in there in the Yale School of Medicine working on this, as opposed to whoever is in your staff? Now, you're making the medicinal marijuana that's dispensed, but none of those people are involved, right? It's just the Yale School of Medicine doing most of the research?
Well, it's more complicated than that. Let's say the
Good. More complicated.
the basic information required to submit to both to the Yale School of Medicine for its own internal process,
Right.
but also to the FDA was a...
So they'll be over your shoulder all the way.
There was
FDA.
a very, very large amount of information that the FDA required that went back for quite a bit of time. So let's say it took us years to prepare what the FDA wanted and a significant amount of time to prepare what Yale wanted. So let's say in working with this study, it's not simply a matter of, let's say, sending something to Yale and then they turn it on. It's something that's been going on the informational side for years already.
Is England the only other country that's been involved in this? Will have been involved once you guys are involved as you are now, or how is that?
No, there were medicinal programs across Northern Europe and in other parts of the world, but let's say there have been recognized medical programs in continental Europe for years.
Well, this is fascinating stuff, science and medicine, and I just wish you well. Will we get updates after the first phase is done, or how will that go? Will you publicize?
Yes, that's correct. We'll release the study data sometime in mid to late spring, and then hopefully by then we'll be enrolling into a phase 2 study.
All right. Well, best wishes to CT Pharma and the Yale School of Medicine, and I appreciate you, both of you, coming in here and talking to us about it. Tom Schultz and Reno Ferraris.
Yes.
They are the CEO and COO of CT Pharma, based in Portland, Connecticut. We're proud of that. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
Now, still to come today on The Real Story, I'm sure you've been reading op-eds written by people who are angry, often millennials, who list the reasons why they're leaving Connecticut. But later on, my colleague Jen Bernstein sits down with Hartford millennial Jared Todd there. He wrote a piece about why he's staying here. But next, right after a quick break, disturbing claims by Connecticut teachers who say their classrooms are making them and their students sick. Mold, asbestos, temperature extremes, other hazards. I'll get all the details from the Teachers Union lawyer, Melanie Kolek, coming up. And right after the real story today, it's Real People with Stan Simpson. On his show today, a look at the hunger and poverty problem in Connecticut. Yeah, we sure have it. It's not just in the cities either, it's in the suburbs too. So stick around for that. The real story will continue right after this quick break.